Hello again, everybody. This is Dr. Flight. Hope you're doing well. This is an overview of our module on targeting. This is a short overview. Again, the idea here is just to give you a little preview of the material that's being covered in this section of content for the course. And so this is all about targeting. When we talk about targeting, what we want to do is we want to actively bring our product to a group of consumers or a market segment. There are a couple things to think about when we're doing this, just in general. Is one, you have to have a deep understanding of who your customer market segment is, what they want, what they're thinking about, how they're making their purchase decisions, and those types of things. I talk about consumption patterns a lot, and each market segment approaches a purchase decision differently, and they do for various reasons. And a lot of times it's their motivation to buy, why they're buying, and how they're buying, the context in which they're buying, and things like that. That if you've done your segmenting and that element well, then you kind of have a really good understanding of kind of how your market thinks or how the market segment you want to approach, how they consider your product in the bigger picture of things. And so when we're targeting, what we want to do is one thing is we want to look at our market segment and other market segments and try to identify those that are the ones we really want to go after. So there may be like two or three or four different market segments that are out there. And one of the realizations you'll have is you might not be able to go after all of them and try to approach all of them simultaneously. One of the approaches that we take is to do target marketing, where we select one or maybe two or a couple different segments and just focus on them first. Try to gain market share, try to be the market share leader perhaps in that market segment. And then after that, go after other market segments. So the question is, well, which market segments should we try to reach first? And those tend to be the ones that are the most profitable, the ones that we can most easily reach, the ones that are most inclined to buy our products, and some elements like that, the ones perhaps that have the least amount of competition, or at least competition that to us seem weak, competitors that we feel like we can compete with strongly. And that makes an attractive target audience, right? Ones that are profitable, ones that we can reach, ones that want our product or are interested in the benefits we can offer, ones that don't have a lot of competition. Those are all really, like attractive, that makes sense for us to try to reach them first before we start moving into other markets. So this is all about thinking in a way of, from a strategic perspective. If you only have a certain finite amount of resources and you can only reach one group of consumers, asking the question, who would you try to reach first? And aggressively attacking that segment first in order to go after others. So that's kind of the basis of this module. There are some other elements that we have in here as well, that are going to be, should be somewhat interesting, I think, in terms of how you go about doing this. But at the end of the day, we've got a reflection, that's the Campbell's Soup reflection, and I like this one. We in America are familiar with the brand Campbell's Soup. It's been around for a very long time. It's unique, however, in the world space for soups. So generally speaking, when we talk about the soup market, you're like, this is boring. What's food, whatever. Soup isn't the sexiest thing out there right now. It's probably a dying type of product category, and in the U.S. that might be the case. But one of the unique things about Campbell's Soup, again, relative to what most people around the world think of as soup, is it's storable. it lasts a long time, but is also in the condensed form something that you open, put it in a pot, and at least the original Campbell soup was one where you added water or milk to it to create the broth and then make soup. So Campbell's, while it has a strong brand name here in the US, has attempted to take their product concept to other countries, notably Russia and China. And over the years has failed miserably to do that. And in part, it's because they have not fully recognized the consumption patterns of those markets, those market segments. They've attempted to take the condensed, pre-made canned soup concept to markets that are traditionally very soup heavy. They consume a lot of soup in these two markets, but the soup that they consume is generally homemade, and it's a family tradition type of a meal that's been passed down generations in the home, cooked to very specifically by family, and it holds a different meaning in these other cultures than it perhaps does here in the U.S. So one of their challenges has been their misunderstanding, I guess, and their lack of adaptability of their core product to the needs of these markets and these market segments overseas. So again, it's a venerable brand. It's a well-known brand. It's a big company here in the U.S. They have a lot of market share here in the U.S., tons of market share. If you just look in the aisle of the supermarket, they occupy a lot of shelf space. They've got a big slotting allowance. They've got a lot of space on the shelves in each supermarket that you go into. So I mean, they're prominent, and old. I mean, they have decades and decades of experience, yet they have struggled to understand other markets' consumption patterns when it comes to their core product. And so this is one of these where you look at, there, what do you have to do to adapt to bring in a new market? And trust me, the markets, the Russian market and the Chinese market, are incredibly attractive. They're very, very large. They're super huge, and they are heavy soup consumption markets. So it makes perfect sense for them to, try to break into these markets and these spaces. But you'll see that they haven't had the most success, if you will, in doing so. So again, it's a great application. It's a real interesting piece here, as far as the Campbell soup piece, and how that all goes. Um, other things to think of, again, in my lecture notes, we go over a bunch of criteria that can be used to evaluate markets based on their attractiveness. And then when you do go into the mode of targeting, there are multiple strategies on which markets to go into, or multiple markets, or whatnot. So there's a spectrum where you can go into a very, very small market and create a small niche, and do something. You can go into a larger market. You can go into two markets that are adjacent to each other. So two markets that are different market segments, but they behave very similar to each other, even though they're defined differently. You could even go into lots of markets at once, which would be a mass marketing approach, but it's hard to do. I mean, it's not always the easiest type of a thing to do. So those are the things to be thinking about in this particular week, this module, if you will. And what we're looking at is all about targeting and bringing the product to a group of consumers and identifying which of those targets are the best ones to go into. All right, so let me know if you have any questions. I hope everything is going great for you, and yeah, take care.